Darkness swallowed Mushin as the clock struck 11. Street lights flickered like dying candles, casting eerie shadows on the cracked pavement. The last bus to Ojuelegba wheezed to a stop, its engine coughing black smoke into the humid night air. Desperate passengers rushed forward. A pregnant woman clutched her belly. A businessman checked his expensive watch nervously. A young student hugged his backpack tighter. An elderly teacher adjusted his glasses with shaking hands. A mother dialed her phone frantically. Each face told a story. Each story hid a secret. The conductor, a thin man with hollow eyes, collected fares with mechanical precision. Move to the back. No space for complaints tonight. As the bus filled beyond capacity, passengers squeezed together like sardines. The air grew thick with sweat, fear, and unspoken tension. The driver's reflection appeared in the rearview mirror, scarred face, cold eyes that seemed to pierce through souls. Several passengers shifted uncomfortably, unable to shake the feeling they'd seen those eyes before. The engine roared to life. Doors slammed shut with finality. As the bus pulled away from the curb, an old woman in the back seat leaned forward and whispered to no one in particular, "This bus is not supposed to exist tonight." Her words sent chills down every spine. The radio crackled with static before a news anchor's voice filled the suffocating bus. Breaking news at 11:15. A notorious killer has escaped from police custody this evening. Citizens are advised to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity immediately. Passengers exchanged nervous glances. The pregnant woman's hand moved protectively over her stomach. The businessman loosened his tie, sweat beading on his forehead despite the night's coolness. The driver's hand slowly reached for the radio knob, turning the volume down until the announcer's voice became a distant whisper. In the rearview mirror, his lips curved into a smile that never reached his eyes. "Bad news travels fast in Lagos," he said, his voice carrying an odd satisfaction. "But good people have nothing to fear, right?" The conductor chuckled, a sound like glass breaking on concrete. The student in the middle seat noticed something that made his blood freeze. On the bus wall, among faded advertisements and safety notices, hung a missing person poster. The face staring back at him was unmistakably familiar. It was the driver's face. The poster was dated 3 months ago, wanted, armed robbery, assault, murder. Extremely dangerous. Do not approach. The student's notebook fell from his trembling hands, pages scattering across the dirty floor. The driver's eyes found his in the mirror, and that cold smile widened. "Problem back there, young man." The student, Michael, scrambled to collect his scattered papers with shaking hands. But instead of lecture notes or assignments, the pages revealed something far more disturbing. Detailed sketches covered every sheet. The pregnant woman, labeled Sarah, embezzlement, stole from orphanage funds. The businessman, marked Chief Adebayo, murdered his business partner for insurance money. The teacher, noted as Mr. Okafor, gave false testimony, innocent boy imprisoned. Each passenger's face was drawn with photographic accuracy, accompanied by crimes they had committed but never been caught for. Crimes that haunted their sleepless nights. The passenger next to Michael peered over his shoulder, gasping at the detailed artwork. "How do you know all this?" she whispered. Michael's pen trembled as he continued sketching frantically. "I don't know," he stammered. "The images just come to me. I see things people have done in darkness." He flipped through the pages, revealing more faces, more sins, more secrets. Each drawing was more detailed than the last, as if some supernatural force guided his hand. But when he reached the final page, his pen stopped moving. The page was blank except for a single heading written in bold letters, "Next Victim." The bus hit a pothole, and Michael's pen skittered across the empty space, leaving a jagged line like a wound across the white paper. In the mirror, the driver's eyes locked onto Michael's notebook, and his smile became predatory. "Drawing again, are we, young artist?" The mother, Grace, clutched her phone with desperate fingers. She had been trying to reach her husband for the past hour, but every call went straight to voicemail. Her daughter was home alone, waiting for her return from her night shift at the hospital. Finally, the phone rang. Relief flooded through her as she pressed it to her ear. "Honey, thank God you answered," she whispered, trying not to disturb other passengers. "I think I'm in danger. This bus. There's something wrong here. Can you come pick me up from Ojuelegba?" Silence stretched across the line before a voice responded, but it wasn't her husband's familiar baritone. It was deeper, rougher, filled with malicious amusement. "Madam Grace," the voice said slowly, savoring each word, "I'm sitting right behind you." Grace's blood turned to ice. She spun around in her seat, phone still pressed to her ear. 3 rows behind her sat a man in a dark hoodie, his face hidden in shadows. He held a phone to his ear, and when he spoke, his voice echoed through her speaker. "You've been running for a long time, Grace. But tonight, your past catches up." The hooded man ended the call, and Grace's phone screen went black. Around her, other passengers pretended not to notice, but she could feel their eyes watching her like vultures circling prey. Her hands trembled as she tried to call her husband again, but the phone was completely dead. In the darkness of the bus, she realized she was truly alone. Chief Adebayo, the businessman, had been counting the stops in his head. His expensive watch showed 11:45, and his anxiety grew with each passing minute. When the bus approached his usual junction, he stood up, briefcase in hand. "Conductor, I'm getting down here," he called out, moving toward the front door. The conductor didn't move. Didn't even acknowledge his words. "Excuse me." Chief Adebayo's voice carried more authority now, the tone he used in boardrooms and business deals. "Open the door. This is my stop." Still nothing. Chief Adebayo pushed past other passengers and pressed the door handle. It didn't budge. He pushed harder, throwing his full weight against the metal, but the doors remained sealed shut. "What kind of nonsense is this?" he demanded, sweat now pouring down his face. The conductor finally turned, his hollow eyes reflecting the dim bus lights like a dead fish. "Nobody leaves until we reach Ojuelegba," he said with mechanical calm. Chief Adebayo banged on the door with both fists, his briefcase falling to the floor and spilling important documents. "Let me out. I have rights. I'll report this bus company." The bus lurched forward, and the overhead lights flickered. In that brief moment of illumination, Chief Adebayo saw something that made his knees buckle. Dark stains covered the bus floor. Stains that looked suspiciously like dried blood, spreading from under the seats like spilled wine. He backed away from the door, finally understanding that this was no ordinary bus ride. Red and blue lights flashed ahead as the bus approached a police checkpoint. Officers waved flashlights, directing vehicles to the side for routine searches. The driver slowed down, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Everyone remain calm," the conductor announced. Standard checkpoint. Nothing to worry about. But several passengers were definitely worried. Chief Adebayo saw this as his chance for escape. The student Michael gripped his notebook tighter. Grace tried to revive her dead phone. A stern police sergeant boarded the bus, his flashlight sweeping across tired faces. "Routine check. Everyone have your identification ready." As he walked down the aisle, counting passengers against some invisible list, his flashlight stopped at an empty seat in the middle section. The seat where the hooded man had been sitting just minutes earlier. "Where's the passenger who was sitting here?" the sergeant asked, pointing to the vacant spot. The passengers looked around in confusion. The hooded man was gone, but nobody had seen him leave. Nobody had heard a door open or close. The sergeant checked his manifest, a crumpled paper he pulled from his uniform. His flashlight illuminated the passenger list, and his face went pale. One name was crossed out in red ink, Victor Okonkwo, deceased. Below the name, in the same red ink, someone had written, "Justice served." The sergeant looked up at the driver's rearview mirror, but all he saw was his own reflection staring back. The missing passenger had vanished like smoke, leaving only questions and fear behind. Mr. Okafor, the elderly teacher, had been silent throughout the journey, but the stress finally broke his composure. Standing suddenly on shaking legs, he grabbed the metal rail for support. "I need to say something," he announced, his voice cracking with emotion. "I can't carry this burden anymore." Other passengers turned to stare at the respected educator. His glasses fogged with tears as he continued. 20 years ago, I was a witness in a court case. A young boy from the slums was accused of stealing from my school. I knew he was innocent, I saw who really took the money, but I was afraid to tell the truth." Grace watched him with growing horror. The student Michael's pen started moving across his notebook again, seemingly on its own. "The real thief was the principal's son," Mr. Okafor confessed. "Rich family, connections, future prospects. So I lied. I pointed at the poor boy and said I saw him take the money." His voice broke completely now. "That innocent child got 5 years in juvenile detention. His mother died of shame. His future was destroyed. All because I was too cowardly to speak the truth." The bus fell into heavy silence. Only the engine's rumble and Mr. Okafor's sobbing filled the air. From the driver's seat came a low, menacing chuckle. "That boy you destroyed," the driver said, his voice carrying decades of suppressed rage, "was me." In the rearview mirror, Mr. Okafor saw the driver's scarred face clearly for the first time. Recognition hit him like lightning. The eyes he remembered from that courtroom 20 years ago, innocent, pleading, betrayed, now stared back at him filled with vengeance. The bus lurched violently to the left, tires screeching against asphalt. Passengers grabbed seats and rails as they were thrown sideways. Through the windows, they could see the dark underside of Ojuelegba Bridge looming above them like a concrete tomb. The engine died with a final, rattling breath. In the sudden silence, the driver slowly turned around to face his captive audience. His hands moved to his face, and with deliberate precision, he began peeling away what they now realized was an elaborate latex mask. Underneath was a face marked by suffering. Scars ran from his left temple to his jaw, evidence of violence survived. His eyes held the hollow look of someone who had stared into darkness for too long and found it staring back. "Allow me to introduce myself properly," he said, his voice now free of pretense. "My name is Victor Okonkwo. Though some of you probably remember me as, that poor boy who stole from the school. Mr. Okafor whimpered, pressing himself against the bus window as if he could disappear through the glass. 5 years in juvenile detention teaches you many things, Victor continued, reaching into his jacket. It teaches you that justice is a luxury only the rich can afford. It teaches you that truth is whatever the powerful decide it is." His hand emerged holding a gun, old but well-maintained, the metal gleaming dully in the bus's dim lighting. "But most importantly," Victor said, pointing the weapon directly at Michael, who still clutched his notebook of secrets, "it teaches you that sometimes, justice must be taken by force." Victor's gun swept across the terrified passengers like a teacher's pointer addressing a classroom. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, steady despite the rage burning in his eyes. "For 20 years, I've been planning this moment," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "Each of you represents something I despise about our society. Corruption. Lies. Cowardice. Injustice." He gestured toward Chief Adebayo. "You first, Chief. Tell everyone about your business partner, Samuel. The one whose death made you so wealthy." Chief Adebayo's expensive suit was now soaked with sweat. I don't know what you're talking about." Victor's smile was razor-thin. "The brake lines you cut on his car. The insurance money you collected. The family you left in poverty." Facing the gun's unwavering muzzle, Chief Adebayo's composure crumbled. "It was an accident. I never meant for him to die. The brakes were just supposed to malfunction a little, to scare him into selling me his shares. The confession hung in the air like poison gas. Next, Victor continued, turning to Grace. Dear Nurse Grace. Tell us about the medication you've been stealing from the children's hospital. How many sick children went without their doses so you could sell them on the black market? Grace's denials died in her throat as she saw Michael's notebook. Her face was there, sketched with frightening accuracy, labeled with crimes she thought nobody would ever discover. One by one, Victor forced each passenger to confess their darkest sins. Adultery. Embezzlement. False testimony. Negligent homicide. From the conductor's seat came a slow clap. Beautiful work, brother. Victor smiled genuinely for the first time. My dear brother Samuel. They thought they killed you, didn't they? The conductor's hollow eyes gleamed with shared vengeance. The passengers stared in shock as the truth unfolded. The conductor was Victor's brother, Samuel, who had supposedly died in the car accident Chief Adebayo orchestrated. His gaunt appearance wasn't from poverty or illness, but from survival. The explosion should have killed me, Samuel said, his voice carrying the rasp of someone who had breathed fire and smoke. But sometimes, God preserves the innocent for a purpose. Chief Adebayo's face went white as understanding dawned. But the funeral, the burial. I saw your body. Samuel laughed bitterly. You saw what we wanted you to see. A burned corpse from the morgue. While you celebrated my death and collected insurance money, I was recovering in a private clinic, planning this moment. The brothers had orchestrated everything. The bus route. The passenger manifest. Even Michael's supernatural ability to see people's sins, he was no psychic, but a researcher who had spent months investigating each passenger's background. We are not murderers, Victor declared, though the gun never wavered. We are instruments of justice in a world where justice has forgotten the poor. The passengers huddled together, finally understanding they were part of an elaborate revenge plot years in the making. But in the darkness of the bus's rear, a hand moved silently toward a hidden blade. Someone had been planning their own form of justice. The knife flashed once in the dim light before disappearing into Samuel's back. His scream shattered the night air as he collapsed forward, blood spreading across his shirt like spilled ink. In the chaos that followed, no one saw who had wielded the blade. Samuel's agonized screams filled the bus as he writhed on the floor, blood pooling beneath his body. Victor spun around wildly, his gun pointing at each passenger in turn. Who did this? He roared, his carefully planned revenge dissolving into chaos. Passengers pressed against the windows and seats, terror replacing their earlier guilt. The pregnant woman sobbed uncontrollably. Chief Adebayo had gone into shock, staring at the spreading blood with wide, unblinking eyes. You're all going to pay. Victor screamed, reaching into his jacket with his free hand. He pulled out a small bottle of gasoline and a book of matches. If I can't have justice, I'll have revenge. He began splashing gasoline across the bus seats, the acrid smell mixing with the metallic scent of blood. Passengers scrambled away from the liquid, but there was nowhere to run in the confined space. Please. Grace begged, her maternal instincts overriding her fear. I have a daughter. She's waiting for me to come home. My partner had a family too. Victor snarled, striking a match. The small flame danced dangerously close to the gasoline. Michael, the student, suddenly stood up despite the gun pointed at him. His notebook was still in his hands, but his voice was steady. We can still survive if we face the truth, he shouted. Your brother is still alive. We can get him help. This doesn't have to end in more death. Victor's hand trembled. The match burned closer to his fingers. It's too late for truth, he whispered. Too late for justice. Too late for... The match slipped from his fingers, tumbling toward the gasoline-soaked floor in slow motion. Darkness swallowed the bus as the flame died. Silence settled like a shroud over the bridge. Dawn broke over Lagos like a bruise across the sky, purple and orange bleeding into the morning mist. The abandoned bus sat beneath Ojuelegba Bridge, its windows dark, its engine cold. Police cars surrounded the scene, their red and blue lights painting the concrete pillars in alternating colors. Ambulances waited nearby, their crews smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, no longer needed. Detective Johnson walked through the bus with careful steps, his flashlight revealing the aftermath of the night's events. Bloodstains marked the floor. Gasoline had evaporated, leaving only its ghost scent in the stale air. Scattered papers and personal belongings told silent stories of interrupted lives. But there was only one survivor. Michael sat on the bus steps, wrapped in a police blanket, his notebook clutched against his chest. His eyes stared at nothing, seeing everything. "What happened in there, son?" Detective Johnson asked gently. Michael turned a page in his notebook to reveal the final entry, written in shaking handwriting, "We are all guilty. But who decides who deserves to live?" "They made us confess," Michael whispered. "Every secret, every sin, every lie we'd hidden in darkness. And in the end, we had to choose, face the truth about ourselves, or burn with our lies." The detective examined the bus more carefully. Bodies were found, but not where expected. Victor and Samuel lay side by side, apparently having reconciled in their final moments. The other passengers had died not from violence, but from something else entirely. "What really killed them?" Johnson asked. Michael looked directly into the camera that was recording his statement, his young face aged by what he had witnessed. "The truth," he said simply. "Some people can't survive the weight of their own guilt." He closed his notebook and stood up, the blanket falling from his shoulders. "If you were on that bus," he said, addressing not just the detective but anyone who would ever hear his story, "would you survive?" The question echoed across the bridge as morning traffic began to flow, carrying ordinary people to their Ike oil on water. In life, truth and accountability cannot be escaped forever, they follow us like shadows, growing longer as the day ends. Our choices on the journey of life decide not just where we go, but whether we arrive at our destination with our souls intact. Justice delayed may become justice denied, but karma never forgets an address. The bus may have been the last one to Ojuelegba, but for every passenger, it was also the first step toward confronting the darkest corners of their hearts. In the end, we are all passengers on the same journey, carrying the same heavy luggage of regret and redemption. The question is not whether we will reach our destination, but what version of ourselves will step off the bus when we finally arrive. I have questions for you. 1. If you were on that bus, what secret would you fear being exposed? 2. Do you believe revenge can ever bring peace, or only more pain? 3. Who do you think stabbed the conductor, and why?